so let's start now. One second. Okay, so we're in Kuntis HaChinuch, Klolei HaChinuch, page 59. Let's do the Kitzer before we go on to Yud Aleph. Kitzer, we learned yesterday, Asara Tivim, 10 different qualities, nature, Koilim, Chamisha Bashiris, 5 on the wealthy, 5 exist by wealthy people, Vachamisha Banios, and 5 by people who come from a poor background, etc., poverty. And that's, if you haven't studied it, please study it. Let's go on. Yud Aleph. The third condition for the matzav, for the situation, that the educator should look at if desiring success with his students. Haischalkus al pi regilus. This is a classification based on habits. Bli hevdel, without difference in tov or ra, whether they be good or bad. In other words, we want to focus in now on a person's habits. Sounds pretty practical for us, right? Let's see. Horegilus hi achas hativim hayoser chazokis bi'atzmam. Habits are one of the strongest natural phenomena for us. They themselves, the habit itself, Moshe, is very powerful in its own right. And number 2, look what he says, bipuloson, the impact that they have on things outside of a person. Habits are very powerful in that way too. Right? Let's look at the words. They're very powerful in their result on things that are outside of themselves. And he'll explain. Habits are not innate. You weren't born with a habit to bite your nails. Right? But it seems like this is who you are. You're biting your nails. You can't stop. And you have to do things, right? That's a habit. It's not who you are. Next page, top of page 61. Himida takifa. That's Achi. Was that with us? Himida takifa bi'atzma. In its own right, it is very powerful. Shehi ki tivi mitaldusa. The feeling of a habit is like it's natural. You understand? Although it's not innate, but it becomes so much part of you, it feels like this is who I am. And this is so true, and it's a mistake. But this is the way it is. You are not your habits. You may be identified by habits by others, but are you your habits? No. So why is it that habits identify you? Your habits become second nature. Meaning it's not really your nature. It becomes your nature. But so we have the 2 sides of the coin. It's not your nature, but it becomes, look at the words, kit teva sheni. It's like a second nature within you. And it feels like as though it's you. In addition to it being very powerful in its own right, it is so powerful that it affects all aspects of a person outside of him, whether it be on his body, whether it be on his soul powers. In other words, the habits that we form, Yoni, the habits that we form are not to be taken lightly. On one hand, we want to dismiss, it's only my habit. It's not who I am. And the Rebbe says, it's true, it's not who you are, but it becomes so much part of you that it does have an impact on you, both in your external aspects of life and in your inner life. So, for example, anxiety. Again, I'm not the professional, but I think, it seems to me, there's one aspect of anxiety that's inherent in a person. They're born with anxiety, with a nature to be anxious. And then there is anxiety that you bring upon yourself through stress, through real estate, and through many other things. Right? Pirkei Avos says, Mar b'nechosim, Mar b'daiga. What type of anxiety is that, Moshe? Is that natural? No. Mar b'nechosim, someone decides he wants a lot of property, which is great. But remember, Mar b'daiga, you're going to have a lot of worries. Do I have a tenant? Do I not have a tenant? Is he in? Is he out? Is he paying? Is he not paying? Is the roof leaking? And it goes on and on and on. Mar b'nechosim, Mar b'daiga. So, daiga, anxiety, there is natural anxiety, and we see this. Why are some children of ours more anxious and some are less anxious? They come from the same parents because there's an element of anxiety that's innate. But then there is an anxiety that's brought about by habit. So I use the example of Mar b'nechosim as an exchange word for habit. Meaning, you habituated yourself by buying lots of property, so the result is what it is. Yes, Yaakov?
It's a consequence.
What is the consequence?
Mar b'daiga.
And therefore? That's right.
If it's a consequence,
and that's what he says here.
I'm not understanding the distinction between then a consequence of investing, but that's not a habit.
I said, I know it's not a habit. It's not like you have a habit to gamble or a habit to drink or a habit to eat or a habit to bite your nails. I mean, first of all, there could be a habit of buying real estate and just being obsessed and having a habit to buy and buy and buy and buy. Why not? But I was giving a dogma, I was just giving an example of how, to support what the Rebbe says here, that a habit has not only in and of itself is so powerful, but its impact is also to the outside, right? It impacts the way your life is, and it impacts the way your spiritual life is. He calls that Eivari Haguf, and he calls Koiches HaNefesh. So the way, I was giving an example, just as Mar b'nechosim brings about Mar b'daiga, so it's not you're not real estate. But when you invest yourself in that area and you're fully into it and you're marbe, remember the wording is marbe, then the result is mar b'daiga. So when a person has a certain habit in whatever area that may be, it's going to make an impact. That's all I was using as an example. Is it clear now?
Fair enough.
Okay.
Very good.
Evan,
Yes.
question.
Yes.
Okay, so I know I came a little late, but question is this. How is it different when you're talking about habits or having daigas, or whatever, the lashon is, than having a person that has his inherent nefesh bahamas? Meaning, a person has a nefesh bahamas, right?
Yeah.
So, if my nefesh bahamas likes to go run after chulent by a kiddush, which that's what I like to do, right? I'm going to have a very bad habit of, not being able to put the plate further from me and jump into the chulent. That's also a habit. It's also nefesh bahamas. Is it the same thing? Is it different? Like what?
Would you call not being able to control yourself at a kiddush a habit? I mean, is it really habitual? I mean,
every week.
No, I would think that is more of an expression of nefesh habamis than habit. What I'm saying is, habit could be a good habit, could be an ugly habit, not a healthy habit. The drive, in other words, you're right. You're right that sometimes to discern between is what's causing me to do whatever I'm doing, is it nefesh habamis or is habit? Because nefesh habamis is part of who you are. Very good point you made, Yoni. And habit, we said here, it's not who you are, it's who you become. But he said as well, it feels as though this is who you are. So, in other words, I'm not going to say someone who whether it's your example or another, whether it's the Marbin Nechosim from Pirkei Avos or the Kiddush chant that you speak about, that's not who the person is. It's not.
I just want to say in Yoni's defense of himself that the Kiddush that he puts out at Karlbach is like a wonder of nature. So it's it would be hard to resist for anybody.
Right. No, but in all seriousness, he's making he's bringing to the table a good thing to look at and think about. That drive, let's forget about it. It could be anybody. That drive to indulge in chont, is that coming from who you are or what you're doing? That is the analysis that we need to think about. And I would like to argue it's not who you are. It's a style and an approach that you've, in a way, been doing for years, to call it a habit, that causes those results. But anyway, now, could there be a person who is obsessed with food? Yeah. But I don't think that you're obsessed with food to the point where if you get up in the mornings like a guy who's a smoker, he doesn't have a smoke, he's crazy. He doesn't have a drink, he's nuts. You know what I'm saying? Could there be a person like that? Yeah, and it's, it needs a lot of refinement. So we have Hillel dealing with these issues probably daily, but let's go on. Second paragraph, page 61. There are two ways that soul powers operate. Aleph, ha'pu'ula b'derech hashpoah b'kiruf. Influencing at close quarters, meaning, k'may pu'ulas ha'seichel shi b'hashpoah b'derech kiruf. How does logic, how does intellect impact? It's called b'derech kiruf, in a manner of closeness. What does that mean? Shemevayer u'mazbir, logic explains and elaborates that this should be in this and this manner. So what is the style that logic, that seichel uses to accomplish its goal? Kiruf. Why is it kiruf? I explain it to you, I rationalize it to you, I take time in developing the idea. That's all kiruf. Bein shehu b'davar shalimud, whether it be in a matter of learning, bein shehu b'davar shalaga, whether it be in a matter of practice. Hini hashpoas haseichel, the impact of logic, bo b'mosen uvenoyam, it comes in the form of patience and sweetness. Seichel is not fighting with you. You hear? Seichel is sweetening you up and saying, come, my dear, let me explain to you what the situation is. That's one type of pa'ula. Beis, number two. There's a type of an activity that is b'derech dominion, a decree. It's going to be this way or the highway. The willpower. What is the derech? Yonis, what is the derech of ratzon? Memsholo shlita, dominance. Willpower is a bulldozer. Seichel is not a bulldozer. Seichel is a sweet thing. Ratzon is tough. Haregilus, habit, pulosa hi be'ofen hasheni. The Rebbe classifies and puts habit, you hear Avi, into the second category, into dominion and decree, forcefulness. B'derech gezeiro memshola. Ukebaymer, as the saying is, hergel shiltoin al kol dover. Habit rules over everything. So if, like, to use Yodi's marshal, you're in the habit of eating, you just roll over everyone, you go for the food, you don't care how you look and how you're perceived, you have to get the first chunk because that's your habit for years. And the way habit works, it doesn't take into consideration anything. Whether it be a minor thing that's relevant to the body. In other words, let's say to your bowels and to your stomach and to your, you're going to fress away, you're going to have issues. Or whether it's a serious issue, it makes you ugly inside. What are you, a glutton? You're a behemoth. So look how the Rebbe says that, I'm giving the dugma, I'm giving the example, but the Rebbe's words is, when it comes to Evorei Aguf, think about, you see, you have to think about the deeper insight. When it comes to Evorei Aguf, he calls it dover cotton. It's a minor thing, the impact on the limbs of the body. When it comes to the koiches hanefesh, to your soul powers, meaning who you are spiritually, it's dover godel. So don't think that fressing away the chont, you're perceived as a glutton. That's the big issue. The big outwardly, what do people say about me? The bigger issue is, what does it say about your spirituality? What does it say about where you're at? Where's your heart and mind? That's the issue. That's the dover godel that really is important. Let's continue.
So Rebbe, basically talking about if you're a spiritual fresser, not a physical fresser.
No, we're saying that the physical eating and fressing of the food has two impacts. One on the limbs of your body, whether you get sick and you got to go to the bathroom, and you vomit and you're tired, all of those things, right? And you're sluggish. And then the same food tells you and others that your spiritual side needs a lot of work. You follow? So it's the same activity.
It's like Pimtum Alev.
It's
a little bit.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that the same activity, the same overeating or oversleeping or overdrinking and over whatever, every indulgence has an impact both in the physical, Evorei Haguf, and in the spiritual. And the Rebbe says that the impact on the physical is considered minor in comparison to the impact on the spirituality, which he calls Godel great. Let's continue. Now he says, Hine b'chol haregilus pulosa. All activity of habit, its impact, b'derech shlita, is dominion, bulldozer. Miblilis chashev, without consideration, imashachutzala. I need it. I need it. It's my habit. I don't care what the outside perceives about me or the situation. Habits are like any other natural tendencies of human beings and their soul powers. Asher shimusham b'hatoiv u'moyil, and he goes back to what we learned yesterday, which is, when used for good and benefits, he yofa me'oid, it's very beautiful. Uvahapochas v'garua, but when used for low life type of things and things that are no good, hura me'oid, it's very bad. Vahainu explains, sheyesh regilus toivos, there are good habits. V'yesh regilus ras, they're bad habits. Imkain, if so, moving now, it goes back to our discussion of chinuch. Asher HaChinuch v'adrocha b'ha misyaches el haregilus. When the educator looks at the issue of habits, tzricha lias misuderes, he needs to again organize the approach behesem letivi haregilus, based on the habits by each student. You can't just put them all into one basket and say they have all bad habits. You will not have any success in educating in that way. You have to look at the particular habit and who has the habit. You see? Because the habit by one that's no good is a virtue by the other, and by the other, when it's a virtue, could be by the other one no good. That's what he's saying. Further. Chinuch, education and guidance must be b'toikev ois, with might and strength, in a specific way. What is that? Lechazek ulefayer eser regilus, to strengthen and beautify eser regilus hama'ula, the virtuous habits, ulahavit, and to eliminate, ulesharish, and to tear out, to remove eser regilus harois, the bad habits, asher yachidem, that they'll be cut away, v'lo yishara mehem afkam shemetz, and they will be obliterated with no remaining vestige. No? How many mechanchen do this? How many people focus in on what the habits are, and who has the habit, and when is the habit, and where's the habit coming from? Okay? I said biting the nails. If a person has that habit and a habit to drink, what habit's worse? You know, you have to evaluate the situation. And of course, what's the root of each? Anxiety, stress, PSD or PTS, whatever it's called, and whatever other conditions, right? You got to go back to the shaydish. What's causing the person to do these habits? But one thing's for sure, that both good habits and bad habits are so powerful that when they operate, they're like willpower, in the sense they run you over and control the situation. And they don't allow logic and intellect in. They fight that off. Now, what is our job? Hillel, what's our job? Our job is to somehow cool the habit down and get the seichel to be more cognizant and real in the person's life. And to do that, it's a lot of work. Yes?
It seems to me from what we've learned that at the moment that a person actually enacts a habit, is acting out, a habit that's coming from the Yetzer Hara.
Yeah.
It's the Yetzer Hara, whether it's an actual issue or not. That at that moment that he's the lashon of the Tanya would be that he's a rasha at that moment. Would that be how you would think about it?
At that moment, he has fallen into a rasha mindset.
And yeah, I mean, I think one of the hardest things for me in learning Tanya is sort of understanding that when we talk about somebody as being good or evil, we tend to talk about like their character through time,
right,
across context,
right.
But the Tanya seems to talk about it as what you're doing in the moment. If you're and who's ruling the Ir Ketana at the moment.
Excellent, that's correct. And why is the Tanya? Why does the Alter Rebbe come to that concept? Because every person is good. There's no such a thing as a bad person. There's bad behavior. That is the ideology that stands behind. Yeah, and that you never always realize that. Yes, Yonason. Yes.
Yeah, the word ragil, which means habit, comes from the word regil, which means leg. So when you walk, when you want to learn to walk, you have to go step by step until it becomes automatic.
Right.
So a habit is something that you do automatically because you've done it once, twice, 3 times already, and it becomes automatic.
Correct.
Now, in order to uproot that habit, when somebody's walking in a way that's not good, you have to relearn how to walk. So the cycle is involved. You have to train yourself.
Right, but he
walk in a different way.
but he has to be able to allow his seichel to get involved.
Yeah.
And if you don't allow your seichel to get involved, it ain't changing. Let me just finish the paragraph. Next paragraph. V'gam regilus hatoiva. Now when we talk about good habits, in lepomen doireshes tikkun. And this is like a chiddush of chassidus. Good habits. Says the Rebbe, sometimes Moshe, they also need correction. A habit of eating good foods, delicacies, to strengthen your body. Next page, 63. So you can learn to have shkida. The kavana of that habit, the intent is good. Aval gufa etzem hargil is the very essence of that habit. Because you're indulging in food. Your intent is good, but the actual performance of the habit is more on the bad side. In addition to that, he says, in addition to the fact that a human being is greater than food and drinks, and it's a pchisos, it's an embarrassment, it's a lowliness for man who is the seat of humanity, a man, intelligence, to be the end all of just one thing, which is eating and drinking. So he says, in addition to that, in addition to that, it's against Torah. In other words, it's against humanity, because you're not being a mensch, you're not being a human. And number 2, it's against Torah, because Torah says you shouldn't be indulging. Therefore, we need to have chinuch and adracha, education and guidance, to try to solve the situation as much as possible. That it should be in correspondence. It should fit the rules of Torah. So what he adds over here in this last 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lines, he's adding that even regilus toivos, good habits that you're eating for the purpose of learning, needs refinement. So in other words, don't think just because it's a habit in a good area, it doesn't need tikkun. It needs tikkun. And this is a very important nekuda, especially by people who are learning and davening and doing the right thing. You need to step back and say, the kavana, the intent is good, but is the application of the tent, the habit in its application form, is it healthy? And sometimes the answer is it's not, whether it's this indulgence or that indulgence. Okay? Simply speaking, someone who is a Shema Torah mitzvahs and he does everything right and he learns in davens, but he has certain habits that he uses that need refinement. That's what it's all about. Chevra, we'll continue tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem. Have a great day, everyone. Sei gesund. Nice seeing everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.